Hi everyone, my name is Destiny Perkins and I'm here with a very, very special guest today. We're going to learn more about him and I'm going to go ahead and read over his bio so you can also learn about him as well. The co-founder of Blockchain Sensei, founder of AIR, CBO of Borderless Blockchain Alliance, technical director, and AI educator, Keison Rigg. But amongst a plethora of Web3 specialties, Keison Rigg is a pioneering force in the intersection of emerging technologies, serving as a co-founder of Blockchain Sensei and founder of AIR, a venture studio focused on bridging AI, Web3, and robotics to create the next iteration of technology. Keison's elite network includes close relations with venture capital CEOs, AI experts, and government regulatory bodies, positioning him to solve significant challenges and deliver cutting-edge value in the technology space. And as one of 3 original founders of Blockchain Sensei, Keison leads all aspects of development, technology, and business strategy within the company, ensuring its continuous growth and innovation. Welcome, Keison, to this conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How do you feel today? How are you?
Yeah, incredible. It's been great, coming down to Cincinnati, Ohio, first time in Cincinnati, and it's been incredible. It's been great meeting really incredible people and getting to connect with more people that are innovating and actually trying to make change in the world. So
Yes, we are here actually filming this at the Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit in 2024. We connected and we're just here. We're here to talk about you.
Exactly.
We're here to talk about you. And I wanted to start this conversation talking about your story and your upbringing, because I think a lot of CEOs, CBOs, founders, right? We look at their achievements and their successes, but there's so much more that came from just that. Right?
Oh,
like
definitely.
What led to your achievement? So I would love for you to share with us, what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, I mean, within my life, I think growing up, it was a very interesting journey, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I kind of had to grow up very quickly because I had to adapt. We didn't grow up with a lot. Throughout our life, we lost a lot as well. And in that period of time, it made me really have to switch on and become entrepreneurial because I had to almost fend for myself, right, out in the world. So I started having to be a lot more creative to find ways of getting lunch, for school, or if there's something that I want, extra like shoes or whatever it may be, maybe a DS, for example, like a game, or a new basketball because I used to play a lot of sport, stuff like this. It was very uh, hard to get without having to work hard for it or without finding smart ways. So when I was young, I was like a kid that was selling food, drinks, and all sorts of sweets and stuff in school, and it was really cool because I was able to adapt quickly, and I was earning quite a good amount of money for a kid, right? I was making like £50 a day just selling these different things and compounding it, and then I saw like a big influx of people that followed after, hustling the same way because they saw it working out. And then I think that was sort of the first entrepreneurial spirit, and it was like a thing that I had to do. It was a choice that I had to make to be able to have access to things.
Wow, I love that because it looks like you really had to tap into being solution oriented.
That's it. Yeah.
Right? You were like, I'm faced with all these problems, but I'm going to be the one to find the solutions for them.
Yeah.
And did someone tell you about selling items? Like, was that something someone recommended for you to do, or did that idea come to you?
Just came to me, honestly. It wasn't a thing that I was taught, but my family, my parents are both very entrepreneurial. Their journeys and learning from their mistakes really helped me understand how to navigate in the world. But I would say I'm a little bit stubborn at the same time because I wanted to go through things myself as well, because I always thought to myself, someone might have had a negative experience or gone through something, and it was something that took away their ability to express or build or work or deal with a situation and find out what's on the other end of it. So I felt like, in my life, and in everyone's life, everyone is on their own path, right? You can have children and you can be a doctor, but there's no guarantee your kid is going to be a doctor. And there's no guarantee that your child will want to go down the same profession. So for me, I just thought, I need to experience things for myself to understand myself more, but also to be able to actually understand the situations and scenarios and maybe see if I can make it to what's on the other side of it. It was always good to have an open mind, and it was always good to be open and learn from different perspectives to be ready for the next experience.
Mm. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that actually too because we read your bio, right?
Yeah.
All of us know your bio and how you're in technology now, and so that's a pretty drastic shift to
Oh
move from
yeah.
selling food, right, in high
As a
school
young kid, yeah.
to now working on AI,
Oh yeah.
right? It's like a huge shift. So, what drew you into technology, and how did you end up to all of these seats that you oversee now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was investing for myself. It was, I found out about investing and I learned about blockchain technology very early on, way before a lot of people. And I was one of them skeptics that was like, this sounds like one of them multi-level marketing things or whatever. I've built a lot of different businesses as a young teenager, 15, 16, 17, exploring life and being completely free, creative, and expressing and building platforms and trying this out, trying that out, collaborating with lots of different people and stuff like that. And when I found investing, I felt like it was almost like a cheat code or fast track. I was like, I have an Apple iPhone, but I can own Apple.
Mm.
I can be Steve Jobs.
Mm.
Really? That's crazy. So understanding ownership was really powerful for me, and I became obsessed with it. Every bit of money that I earned from working, I was working night shifts, right? I was doing Amazon warehouse work, night shifts, yeah,
Really?
no sleep. And then after I finished that, I'll just go straight to my other businesses. I was printing clothing at the age of 17, 16. I was doing podcasting and all sorts of stuff. So, um, I've always done a lot of different things. And I think, yeah, investing was my gateway into emerging technology because it made me more aware and it made me really start questioning things and understanding if this happens, what is the outcome? And I started investing in stocks, and then I moved into penny stocks, and then I started investing in DeFi, which is like penny stocks of crypto, basically. Young, new, and emerging projects and companies. So penny stocks is like the stock market, the early stock market where companies are trading to get to a point where they're able to list publicly on the Nasdaq or a major stock exchange. So it was really cool to understand that, and I found a lot of growth in my life and a lot of financial gain from understanding how to identify opportunities before everyone else, understanding how to assess and manage and understand what teams and what value they can bring, and then also looking at the world as a whole and understanding what's happening in the world. So that's sort of what started me off. And then I started investing in DeFi heavily, and then from then I started educating people on how
Mm.
to utilize the tools that we have. And from that, it then just branched out. I started building projects. My first ever project that I worked on was actually a smart city project, where it was almost like I was a kid in a candy store because I had the ability to literally design the future of how cities would be. And I was reading a ton of reports. I was reading a ton of, the latest reports of the innovations and future of technologies. So I had a clear understanding of all of these emerging technologies anyway. And I've always been looking at them, assessing these companies because I was looking to invest in them. So from these experiences and understanding and reading white papers of projects, which is basically a technical breakdown of a project, I understood how the architecture of them, and I understood what architectures were successful and what architectures had pitfalls in it. And then I would just make my own solutions. And off the back of doing that, I just ended up spending, months just ingrained in this smart city concept and literally visualizing it and actually feeling like I'm living in it. And then envisioning what does a brand collaboration look like in that space? What does, the future of health and the future of how people interact, communicate, and how is this community gonna work? So thinking about all of those things was very exciting for me, and that was one of the first projects. And after that, as Blockchain Sensei was, we are a research team. Of course, we're educators, but we're a research team. So we wrote a lot of white papers. A lot of us spending hours together researching and developing these the latest innovations and bridging them together to create these vibrant concepts that allow these companies to make additional revenue streams, etc. We found lots of really, really interesting ways of going about it, and yeah, from that it just spiraled, and it was really
Mm-hmm.
cool. So yeah.
I feel like when it's purposeful, it
Mm-hmm.
works out in your favor,
Oh, definitely.
right? And you said with Blockchain Sensei, you're spending time educating people, but not just any people, entrepreneurs, like upcoming
Exactly.
entrepreneur businesses.
Yeah.
So with that, you run over 35 businesses globally, correct? So
Mm-hmm.
what is your best tactic that leads you to run over 35 businesses?
Systems.
And and how do you
Systems.
manage them, right?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, it's a little bit different because what I looked at doing is acquiring what I call the pipeline.
Okay.
So for a product, you know, to become successful, right? What does that product need, right? Of course, it needs customer base, right? It needs to be developed and built to the highest of quality and standard that it can be, and then also it needs to be something that has impact and can actually last a long time. So these are sort of the initial things that I look at, and I looked at it as a in a way where I need to acquire these pieces in order to build and grow companies rather than the other way around, because if you look at the startup space as a whole, it's a really difficult industry. I think it's around 97% of startups fail, right? There's over 300 million startups globally a year, and 3% survive, right, for a bit, and then they die, right, or they try to raise again, and only 1% thrive, generate revenue, become very successful businesses. So, you know, that in itself and those statistics made me understand that 97%, or let's call it 90% of the people I'm speaking to don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
So that really made me think about the industry as a whole and what makes the industry difficult to um, grow quickly and to actually generate really great returns is the VC model right now, in especially across tech, is failing us right now because some of the best firms, without naming names because I know who you are, we see each other in office sometimes, right? So without naming names, yeah. Um, some of the biggest and best um, firms have like a 2,000 to 1 ratio. They have 3,753 applications come through. Now you know who you are. And out of those 3,570 odd applications, right, there was only 7 that got selected, right? So that goes to show you that their process of elimination or their actual due diligence process isn't efficient. How do you not have a greater output, right? And then the other problem with VCs is that it's not their money, right? They're funded by LPs, family offices, bigger players in the game, right? So they are literally, when if you look at the financial quarters, when it comes to the time where they have to do all of their finances, etc., that's the last little bit that they have to use the money. So what do? They go and throw it like needle in a haystack, trying to get one to hit. And I think that's not really a way to support innovation. And then the way that they do it as well, the structure that they invest in companies is terrible. Like, I know people that have gone down accelerator program route. They've been promised that they're going to be getting paid 250K or 150K or these small ticket sizes, and then they sign the contract. They're excited. They go ahead and do it, and they're like, "Oh no, we're just going to give you 15K to start with, or we're just going to give you 30K or 50K to start with," and then later on, when it comes to them actually building and growing a company, they're bottlenecked. They can't actually grow because they don't have the funds, they don't have the capital, they don't have the resources, and these VCs are not actively giving resources either in the accelerator programs. It just doesn't make no sense. So for me, there's only a handful of accelerator programs that are doing it better, right? But if you look at the um, success ratio, if you look at the uh, investment structures, it's like chicken before the egg. So it's just kind of a mess at the moment. And obviously Silicon Valley Bank crashed, and that happened as well. A lot of large tech companies money just disappeared overnight. And then you know we had FTX, which was a large exchange that really messed up the game as well. So after that, everyone's approach is different now, but the space is in a really bad position where you know that's why I'm in the business of solutions, because there's so much problems. All you can do is build the solutions, right?
Right.
But I think there's a lot of value in that, and I really want to upskill people to understand that this is the biggest transfer of wealth in history, right? We're coming into the fourth industrial revolution, and right now there's so much change that is happening in the world. We spoke out of camera about the social construct of the world, and I think that there's so much that we need to do better on in order to be able to not only grasp the tools and things that we have access to, but also to, you know, actually make change that is viable and actually, you know, change the narrative of how people approach things. Because this whole VC route is the only narrative that people fall in love with without actually understanding what it really is. And yeah, I want to get this money. Yeah, I want to raise. Yeah, I want to, get this company going. And even some founders that do raise, the money's not going in the right place because they've never, some of them never built a business before. Some of them have never, actually been in that industry before. And, early on back in the day, this doesn't happen anymore too much, but people are getting raising money from idea. And there's literally cowboy people that would literally go find out what the trend is, make a pitch deck about that, get capital, and pull it out, and then go and do it again every year
Mm.
or every quarter, every 2, 3 quarters, the same team, the same face. How do you not notice these people? So there's there's a weird sort of feeling in the air from how the industry has been run. And for me, if you look at the bigger players in the space, majority of them are in the red, and they need solutions.
Hmm.
Because after those things that happened with Silicon Valley Bank and FTX, it really just disrupted the whole industry in a bad way. So yeah.
Right. And what's interesting about that, because you've named so many different ways you manage them, but
Yeah.
also we've also spoken before about how to be an entrepreneur and to just run a business in general is like you have to have a vision,
Yeah.
you have to execute it, and then you have to have someone working and implementing it into
Oh, for
action.
sure.
And I think that most people are really good at one of the tiers
Exactly.
and can't do all of them, right? Like you just mentioned, somebody
Yeah.
goes and finds the idea and sells it, and they're like, "Okay, rent's paid for a year,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But then you're like, "Okay, but now who's the one that's going to execute it?" Right? They
Exactly.
may just need that guidance, and then of course, the workers, employees, everyone that we're seeing all over the world, right? They're executing so many people's visions. So you're basically in the companies that you run, you're overseeing and you're helping them do all of those steps, right?
Yeah, and the first thing I look at is the team. First thing I look at is the team. Second thing I look at is the product. Team's more important than the product because the you know you need good people, you need driven people, you need people that have big ambition that can actually go out and achieve things. Because if you don't have that, then you have some idiot that's going to be running your company and turning everything to nothing and extracting value instead of adding value. So the first thing I look at is the team, and that's why, you know, I like to say I work with the top 5% of industry professionals. I think it's top 1%, but I'm being a little bit.
Right, give it some room. Yeah.
Give a bit of room. And I think the reason why that is such a powerful thing because then you can't fail because you're not guessing anymore. You know the outcome. The difference is between what people are doing is they get the money and then they're like, let me think of what I should do now, right? But you know, I already know how I'm gonna exit companies before I even got a contract with them and closed them yet. I already know what team I want to allocate. I already know how I can expand it into a whole new region, a whole new demographic. You know, so you know, having that outcome is the most important thing. It's more important than having the capital. It's more important than you know a lot of things because I think when you sit with the outcome, if you look at it as a game, the game's already done. You already win. So that's why I look at owning the infrastructure, and that's why I look at building in that way because that's the smartest approach that you can take. And I think, people are thinking backwards basically and building backwards, and that's why also companies are failing. Yeah.
Well, listen, you've built your niche, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. And a lot of people, they do need that guidance.
Yeah.
And you know what's so great about this is like how we mentioned earlier, we are at Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit, and you're here on behalf of Forbes Web3. So this is a Gen Z basically summit. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear not only your age, but the experience that you've taken and how far you've come. So to be a successful entrepreneur in Gen Z at 25 years old, doing all of these amazing things and wearing all these hats that you wear, do you encounter people running game on you when it comes to maneuvering business negotiations, and how do you maneuver those experiences?
I have mentors. I have business partners that I work with that have been in the game longer than me, that have been more successful than me. So, I feel like I'm open to different perspectives and understanding. I know how to hold my own ground. I know when to speak and when not to speak. A lot of people don't, right? So I think that with those skill sets, it allows me to know how to maneuver in certain situations and scenarios. And, if we're talking about outside of my team with someone who's experiencing me for the first time or looking to do business with me and they're thinking this guy's so young, how does he have so much companies, how does he do all of these things, etc., and they want to get into the nitty gritty. I think that um, with some of those people, if they don't understand me to the level that I'm playing the game, then it's my fault, it's not their fault because I'm not communicating correctly. So I feel like uh, situations and scenarios like that, I learn from them immediately, and I just literally check myself, and I look at it and I understand their perspective and their understanding because that's the most important thing. And I've spoken to thousands of people, and I don't work with everyone, and I think you have to accept that. And some people don't. Some people hold on to that, and I don't feel like that is the best way to move forward. And you just have to remember that there's 300 million startups a year globally, right? So what is there to worry about when working with individuals? If they're not right for you, move on. And if people are going to be successful, that's incredible. And I think supporting that and still being a person that is positive, even if you're not working with someone, is so important as well. Because you never know who someone's going to be in 5 years. You never know who someone's going to be in 3 years, yet alone five, right? And you know the amount my life has changed in the past 5 years. Imagine all the other people around you. So that's why you have to carry yourself with a certain level of respect for other individuals, and I think that's so important as well. And working in tech, the interpersonal skills and the old school way of doing things. We're hanging out in person. We're talking about life and all sorts of things. You know, you can't skip that part.
Mm-hmm.
Skipping that part is like it's like taking the heart out of things.
Mm.
And I feel like that's another reason why people are not grasping things the way that I feel like they could, because you I think having that level of skill set and understanding comes from having in-person experiences and real connections with people, because doing it online is not the same at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we host events that are more private, intimate, small amount of people, 20 to 50 people in a room, and you can make those incredible connections. So this is what I think people are missing. And when in doubt of like the future in trading, we say you look back, you see the history.
Mm.
So it's the same in life. It's the same with everything. You can take these little gems, these little things that you're learning, and implement it in life at a later stage. So that's why I'm learning perspectives, collecting them, and at some point in my life it will be useful.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah, building relationships, like,
Yeah.
because that's also how you're able to vet out the person.
Oh,
Because you
definitely.
said you don't work with everyone, which
Yeah.
means you have to like notice and be observant things that they're saying to you, what their goals are, for you to actually go in there and say, okay, yeah, like let's do business, or like, hey, like we're not aligned,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
we separate our ways respectfully.
Hmm.
Okay, so to wrap up this amazing interview, you have mentors, you've been given advice,
Yeah.
right? And now it's time to give some people the advice.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
what is one piece of advice that was given to you that has helped you scale your businesses globally?
Oh man, just structuring things. I've been saying this all summit, the whole Forbes summit. Nothing that I do has changed. The only thing that has changed is the way that I structure things correctly. Because, you know, I think the journey I've been on, connecting with people, working, building, growing, etc. You need to have the right things in place to ensure that you know you're covered as well. Because being a person who's very open-hearted, warm-hearted, and also wants to help people build and grow and etc. Sometimes you can get too ingrained in that and forget about yourself, right? So I feel like um, having the right contracts in place, having the right structures and understanding, and actually looking at the journey of someone that has an experience with you and understanding, from past experiences and from things that have happened, what do you want the future experience to be, and how do you get closer to that, and how do you level that up? How do you make that more efficient? And I think not just through technology, it's through organization and structure. And I think
Right.
that's the main piece I'd like people to know, because, you know, the way that you structure things, even if you're going out and doing the same things that you've done previously years ago, if you structure it better, then it will repay you for the years to come. And I think that's one of the things that is one of the main things that I've learned the most. Yeah.
The structure, the
Hmm.
foundation, right?
Exactly.
I love that. Well, thank you so much
Thanks for
for
having
sharing
me.
this amazing knowledge. And how can people be in touch with you if they either want to learn more about how
Hmm.
they can scale their business through you,
Hmm.
through the investors you're connected with, or just know more about what you're doing on your journey?
Yeah, I'm big on LinkedIn. Obviously, my name is Keison Rigg, so Keison. Surname is Rigg, fully doxed, I know. And I think, uh, yeah, I think the main thing is just keeping up with things that I'm doing and getting clear understanding. I do a lot of education. I do a lot of mentorship. So look out for that, and you'll find it. And I think those are the main pieces. And with the companies that I'm building and growing, there's a lot of pieces that and a lot of announcements that will be coming. So yeah, it's exciting. Yeah,
So excited. All right. Thank you.
thank you.
And we will see you in the next interview.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.